The yield trap is a mathematical illusion. It occurs when an investor risks 100% of their principal just to capture a marginal 1 or 2% increase in yield. Current Federal Reserve rate policies have created a rare environment for savers. You can now generate a meaningful return simply by holding cash in the most basic accounts. However, high numbers advertised by Wall Street often override the logic of a safe baseline, triggering the inherent desire to chase higher yields. This creates a difficult choice. You must decide between an easily accessible 4.5% to 5% APY and aggressive marketing campaigns for products promising 7 or 8%. This choice involves a specific trade-off. You are asked to exchange the government-backed protection of your capital for a slight increase in monthly cash flow. Chasing that 1.5% premium changes your standing in the financial system. You move from being a protected depositor to an unsecured creditor. This matrix allows us to compare these cash parking options across 4 key metrics. We are going to evaluate them objectively, side by side. Properly evaluating these products means prioritizing the prevention of total capital loss. We do that by exposing the true cost of an extra 2% yield. We start with the concept of a risk-free return, using the most common tool available, a bank certificate of deposit, or CD. The first column shows the result of a CD. Locking up $100,000 guarantees a yield of approximately 4.5%. This is backed by FDIC insurance, covering your principal up to $250,000 per institution. The primary trade-offs here are the loss of liquidity for the length of the term and the risk that inflation stays level with your interest rate. A second safe baseline is U.S. Treasuries, offering yields very similar to bank CDs. As shown in the second column, purchasing government debt provides a similar APY, but often includes state and local tax exemptions. Operationally, Treasuries require more effort to manage through a brokerage account or Treasury Direct compared to a standard bank deposit. Because CDs and Treasuries are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, your principal remains immune to corporate default or collapse. Moving beyond the safety net brings us to corporate debt, beginning with investment-grade AAA corporate bonds. The third column shows these bonds typically increase your yield by 0.5 to 1.5. At the extreme end of this spectrum are high-yield or junk bonds, which advertise an APY of 8% or higher. These products attract investors by maximizing monthly cash flow on paper. This often triggers a fear of missing out and leads to aggressive yield chasing. The SEC identifies these promises of high returns with little or no risk as a primary red flag for fraud and capital destruction. This final column reveals the high-yield trade-off. You accept massive corporate default risk in exchange for an upside that is strictly capped at that advertised yield. Swapping a government guarantee for a 2% yield bump is a structurally asymmetric bet. Mathematically, it is the equivalent of risking $100 just to make 2. The yield trap is an illusion. The extra 1 to 2% APY is simply the premium Wall Street prices in for the risk of catastrophic loss. This mindset carries a psychological cost, forcing investors to endure constant stress and unnecessary exposure to corporate default. In a 5% rate environment, most retail investors find no logical benefit in sacrificing a $250,000 FDIC safety net. This decision framework starts with one fundamental question: what is the primary purpose of this cash? For those focused on capital preservation or retirement, the search begins and ends with FDIC-insured products and Treasuries. Accepting the baseline 4.5% yield allows you to prioritize peace of mind over marginal gains. Aggressive investors have a legitimate desire to take on elevated risk in exchange for much higher potential returns. And the correct venue for that risk is the stock market, where the potential upside is theoretically uncapped. Risky debt offers the worst of both worlds. It caps your upside at a meager 7 or 8%, while leaving your downside exposed to total loss. Successful investing requires you to be symmetrically compensated for the exact type of risk you choose to take.